welcome to the session. Accessibility compliance, we must have been talking about it. We have seen even doing it for one single website or an app itself is a project. It's a dedicated effort. Think about it, doing it for say 50 plus sites or multi-site, multi-brand scenario is going to be a task in itself. Today's session, we are going to talk about such a complex scenario, and easily you can scale that, you can take that model and use it for even simpler scenarios. But we are going to talk about extreme scenarios in the presentation to come. I'm Akhil Mittal, Vice President of Digital Solutions at Altudo, a Sitecore Platinum implementation partner.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brenda Tharp. I'm the Senior Business Relationship Manager in Digital for McCormick and Company.
We have a lot to cover in just a few moments, in just a few minutes. Just to set the right expectations, what we are not going to cover in the session are things like what is accessibility compliance, what are different regulations, WCAG, ADA, 508. No, that's not really core part of what we are going to cover. If you have questions on those aspects, feel free to reach out to me or Brenda after the session. But really, what's the meat of the discussion here is we want to talk about the complex scenario I was hinting towards, and how do we really scale up that program from an accessibility compliance perspective, and how do we really find that right formula of success for running such a large program. Okay, before we deep dive into how part, let's really see, why do we even bother about it? Legal, of course, is by far the largest motivation factor we have seen in all these initiatives. We have heard about multi-million-dollar legal suits. We have heard about legal firms sitting out there and scanning hundreds of websites just to file legal lawsuits and earn money. Again, COVID-19 had an impact on the overall numbers of FDA, ADA filings, but believe it or not, May 2020, we are back. So you never know when is your website or your app the next in that list. And if you are in California, you have double the worries because of the Undo Act there. But legal is not the only considering factor in accessibility compliance initiatives. Growth is another big factor. Consider this, that almost 1/4 of every adult in the United States have got some type of disability. It's a huge market. As marketers, can we even afford to miss that kind of market? No, right? Again, doing accessibility compliance remediation can help improve your SEO, a total bonus, isn't it? A third dimension to this entire discussion is about situational disability. Even healthy adults, we are in situations where, and we must have seen this, especially in the current COVID times, we are multitasking every moment, every time right now being working from home. In such situations, there are moments where we are disabled by the way we can act or the action that we can take. Those moments are maybe the one when your particular prospects are browsing your websites, your apps, and overall user experience is really significant, right, for every initiative that we take.
In addition, there's a lot of challenges and risks that you're going to be mindful of. And some of them really start with just accessibility awareness. When you're designing and implementing sites, you want to make sure that those that are working on the sites, coming up with the creative ideas, as well as coding them, understand accessibility and what it means to the development of those sites. In addition, limited resources to manage accessibility issues. The thing about accessibility is it's not just a one-time thing where the project starts and it ends. It's a journey. Accessibility changes, websites change, and you want to make sure you've got resources in place to be able to manage the change and the evolution over time. There's also a scarcity of professionals with familiarity to some of the tools that you need to be able to do proper accessibility testing. So you've got to make sure that you've got the right tools and the right skills in place. And if you don't, it becomes a challenge. It's something you're going to have to be able to overcome. There's, of course, always legal and compliance issues, whether you're facing a lawsuit or you're trying to mitigate a lawsuit. There's a lot of things you need to be taking into account, and they can always be risks and challenges that you need to overcome. And then by far and wide, the most important is really the missed opportunity in trying to reach the audience, right? Accessibility means you're giving access to your website to everyone and anyone out there. And if you don't have an accessible website, you run the risk of missing a really important segment of the audience that you might be trying to reach.
We have, as I said, a lot to cover, but we are going to summarize that into these 5 key tips. Get ready. Tip number 1, biggest thing in any compliance initiative. All of us, we always start with thinking, say, hey, regulatory compliance may be the driving factor behind a lot of these programs, and I don't negate that factor. But keeping regulatory compliance as the center of the initiative can lead to the biggest failure. Reason, if that is the center point of your entire initiative, what happens? We just end up checking a checkbox or ticking up a checkbox for the activity, which doesn't help in the long run at all. And we will come to see why. Why is that? And the end user experience has to be the focus point for any of these initiatives, any of these exercises. As with any other marketing initiatives, it's no different than that. And regulatory compliance can be part of that program, but not the center for sure.
Tip 2 is around templatization, and this really revolves around the concept that scalability in what you're delivering matters. So I'm going to walk through just what templatization really means, and I'm going to give you the McCormick lens when I do that. McCormick has a series of different types of websites, whether they're brand-specific sites reaching our consumers, corporate sites that are reaching our investors and our potential employees, storefronts for shopping, or a variety of other sites. There's all different types of sites that exist in our ecosystem today. In addition to that, each different type of site has different business features, whether it's navigation, particular forms, particular experiences, all the capabilities and the components of them are very different. What that means is that you've got independent backlogs for each of these different websites. Each brand or business unit is managing its own feature list, and the delivery teams are then working on those independently of each other. Then you look at those backlogs, right? And as development teams start to work on them, team 1 is working on the backlog from site type A, team 2 is working on site type 2, and so on. And they're actually working on them sequentially, but they're working on them as independent teams. And what you have happening here is a lot of rework over and over again. So as you make a change to something, you may be able to reap the benefits of it on other sites, but you've got to go back, put it into the backlog of the next team, and then rework it again. Where McCormick is going with this, and it's something that we're just kicking off this year and excited to really roll out in 2021, is the idea of component libraries, or a single source of code for all of our websites, which we're calling OneWeb. And what this is really a component library where you've got different features and functionality, carousels, maps, forms, tabs, etc., that are all being built as individual pieces or building blocks, or what I like to call Legos, right? And then you take the Legos and you start to construct them together to build out your websites, and then layer on top of that your brand themes to bring your styling, your colors, your fonts, your experience to life for that particular brand or that particular audience. Now what you've got is multiple teams working on the same set of code. And when you need to make a change for accessibility compliance, performance compliance, or otherwise, you make the change on the base component or on the base theme and allow those changes then to be leveraged across multiple sites or all the sites that that code supports. And this is why templatization is so important, because it allows you to do accessibility on a broad range of websites in one fell swoop. Tip 3 to this is really around how you structure the program and organize it in an environment where you've got multiple owners. And I'm going to walk you through 4 key pieces to this particular tip. The first one is around identifying the stakeholders. And in accessibility, you're never going to have a shortage of stakeholders in a large organization, especially when you've got this many websites. Whether it's your diversity and equality teams, your digital strategy leaders and marketing teams who have a vested interest in the experiences you're building and what they look like to the end consumer, corporate communications, who's responsible for talking about accessibility both to your internal employees and your peers, or as well as sharing accessibility compliance outward with the market and your visitors on our websites. Data privacy and legal counsel, of course, are very important to make sure you're checking all the right boxes. And then you've got your technology partners and your external partners that are really at the heart of building the site and the experience that you need. And why external partners and top technology partners are important is because you could develop a website and you could have accessibility woven throughout your process. But if you inject a component or a feature from another partner, you want to also make sure that their experience is delivering compliance, because if they're not compliant, then technically your website is not completely compliant. So we want to make sure that we're bringing all the pieces together and having all the right conversations. The second item here is really around aligning on a single project owner, and I cannot underplay the importance of having one project owner. You saw in the last slide the number of people that are really involved in this conversation, and everybody's got a viewpoint. Everybody's got a different viewpoint, and you really need somebody at the helm of this project to pull all of those viewpoints, all of that insight together, harmonize it, synthesize it, and make sure that they're driving to a single course of action while taking everybody's feedback into account. The third step here then is really to determine what it's going to take to reach accessibility. And the first part of this is really to start with accessibility education. More than likely, the people in your organization, as well as maybe even some of your partners, don't have a true understanding of what accessibility means. And you really need to start with the foundation and explaining that so that everybody is starting from the same playing field. From there, you can start to ideate on things like what success looks like, what your milestones and targets are, what your roles and responsibilities are, and then start to explore a little bit deeper. What are the technologies you need, and what are those partnerships you need to make, right? Whether it's a accessibility professional, whether it's a particular type of testing tool, whatever it's going to take to bring accessibility forward to your organization. Once you've got that in place, then it's really about designing, developing, testing, making sure you've got a full-fledged communication plan in place to speak to your internal stakeholders as well as your external visitors, and then having a routine cadence for legal and compliance reviews, both before you go live as well as ongoing initiatives to make sure that you are always keeping your eye on compliance. And the last step here is really about building that accessibility plan and how you're going to execute accessibility across the websites. As I mentioned, McCormick has 50 plus websites that we're working on. And there's a variety of ways that we can slice and dice them. We can actually look at whether we're trying to launch it on a full site or a page or a template approach. There's always also the opportunity to prioritize your websites. You could start with the websites that have the largest impact or have the highest traffic to make sure that you're solving accessibility for those that you're able to reach more frequently. You could look at it from a segment perspective. In McCormick, as an example, we've got our consumer side and we've got our flavor solution side. We could target one or we could target the other. Or you could even look at it from a workload perspective, right? You've got multiple teams that need to play a role in this. Maybe you need to front load this because you've got a lot of development skills available for the next 6 months. And then you focus on those high priority sites first while you've got the major workload. And then you taper it back and wrap up the rest as resource constraints allow. And finally, you could look at it as implementing it all at once or on a rolling cycle. If you've got 50 websites and you want to go all in and get all 50 accessibility compliant at the same time, good for you. Go out, give it a try. We hope it works really well. McCormick by itself is opting for the more rolling cadence. We're going to do this a little bit more methodically, but it really depends on the size of your organization, the number of sites, and the approach that you feel is best suited for your organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brenda. Lovely insights and really unique case and a big learning for all of us. Okay, tip number 4, big question. And all of us talk about these two common, I will say, the ways of doing an accessibility testing. We say one is the easier route via tools. There are a ton of tools. We will see some of the names, but no means to promote anyone. It's like there are a ton of those tool names which keep coming up every day. Tools are helpful, they are fast, they can do a lot of things. Operator testing, we mean testing by actual people with different kind of disabilities. Of course, that's the most accurate if we have to do an accessibility testing, which is the most thorough. Operator-based testing is the way to go. But which one to go for our initiative is the question mark we keep coming across. I'm referring to this study done by the UK government, and what they did, they took 10 best of breed tools which are widely used in the market and had a sample accessibility page where they tested it out with known barriers. And what they found out really was eye-opener. Said even the best of the tools that they use could not find more than 40% of the barriers on that page. And even after they used all the 10 of them, they could not find more than 29, over 29% of the barriers were left to be tested out. So it's a huge learning that we got from that study, saying, of course, tools are helpful, they can do a lot of things, but we can never be assured, we can never conclude on any accessibility testing uh, just by using tools. We have to complement that with an actual operator-based testing. The big question mark in any operator-based testing approach is the time. It's an extensive manual exercise. It takes time. It takes its own time. The secret sauce here is, can we really define the program in a way that it can match the balance between speed and accuracy that we require? We're talking about 6 common steps, no rocket science here. First and foremost, that everything depends upon is listing down the exact assumptions, what we are going to do, part of the program, what is the level of conformance, are we good with level A, do we want to go for double A, or if the business asks for triple A, is there a strong reason to go for that or not? Again, what environments we need to test, what are the tools, methodologies, everything has to be nailed down in the first go, very, very critical phase, which includes second, and that's what Brenda was talking about, templatize approach. If we have, and even if we don't have that entire templatization within the current website, can we identify what are those unique pages that are kind of templates, and rest of the pages follow that same pattern, the same template? As marketers, we all know, right, what are the unique templates on our website or on our apps. Of course, this is followed by the actual testing, the remediation, and regression is again a question mark. Do we want to do it via operator-based testing or tool-based testing? Is a decision that has to be taken during the first phase, the first phase of the project out there. Again, it's not really a standard formula or governance principle, but what we found out during our learnings from the projects is that it is really helpful when we group the websites into some logical groupings. And again, it's totally dependent upon your business, the way you see your business decision. But in the example we are talking about here, we said, let's group it geo-wise first because we have different geo teams. Then we group it as per different brand teams. Followed by it, we group the sites as per their complexity, the volume, the size, and so on. This is where everything comes together when in terms of operator-based testing. Again, this is just an example. It's not a standard formula, no standard template to be referred here. But what we spoke about the grouping, we see there are different groups that we were talking about, like 50 plus websites. So we grouped them in different logical fashion, number of websites in each group, and then identified what are the unique number of templates, because we are talking about websites which have got thousands of pages. If an operator is going to test, or even an army of operators are going to test thousands of pages, consider it like a multi-year project. We can't wait that long, right? Everything will change within years and months of that. And again, how do we want to proceed with respect to the operating system environment? So we have got different operating systems. Need not to test every single page for all the operating systems. We have to make a logical sequence of things, logical fashion, the way we govern this entire program. Again, there are a lot of details out there. We are just touching what is the starting point for you in your journey. Tip number 5, last not the least, very, very critical to understand. It is not really a destination. The biggest error we can ever do is to write on our website that, hey, our website is compliant with WCAG. It can never do not do it. Very, very strong recommendation. You are inviting for multiple lawsuits if you go and write that one. Always better to use verbiage such as, while we are in compliance and we are pursuing this compliance, we continue to dedicate resources towards mitigating, and for any help, this is the contact details. That's the ideal verbiage. Again, as Brenda rightly spoke about, take baby steps. Don't talk about doing everything big bang. Say WCAG, we speak about level A compliance, double A, triple A. Triple A, if it's not required, then why do you want to really take that much of pain, that much of investment into it? If double A is what your business wants you to go, strive for it, go for it. Once you are done, then only think about the next step. Don't really think about jumping directly to triple A. And last, but really, really critical point, as I said, it's a continuous process. Define a playbook for your content authors where everything gets started is your content. So for your content authors, give them a playbook for accessibility compliance so that when they are working on the content piece, they know exactly where to take care of it, what to do, how to define it. That becomes really a key stepping stone in your compliance program. With that, that's it. I think for today, again, it's a journey. Do write to us. Feel free to reach out to me or Brenda, or you have our email IDs on LinkedIn. And yeah, all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending the session. We have Brenda and Akhil here for a live Q&A, and I'm going to ask them the questions since we don't have much time. I'm going to jump directly into the questions. So the first question is, how do you handle the dreaded answer of no? If the brand needs X website quickly, but it would break compliance to do it quick and dirty. Brenda?
So I'll take that one. Thanks, Dan, for asking that question. I think it really boils down to what the organizational mandate is on accessibility. If you have a strong plan in place where accessibility is mandated, then you need to elevate that to the business leaders who have made that statement a reality. If you've got some wiggle room, then it really becomes a question for your business teams as to whether they want to accept the risk or do have a plan in place to be able to quickly go back behind something that may be down and dirty and bring it quickly up to compliance so that you are able to maintain accessibility.
Akhil, do you want to add anything to that? Otherwise, we'll jump to our next question.
I completely agree with Brenda. It's more of a business decision. The stakes are very high in any accessibility. We have seen the kind of litigations placed, and we hear about these $1 million plus litigations. So stakes are high. It's a pure business decision. There is, unfortunately, in accessibility, there is very little you can do quick and dirty. That's the only take I have.
Dan, next question is, how do you handle the, oh, sorry, something jumped up here. How should we monitor and track the accessibility compliance for our site on an ongoing basis?
Perfect. Music to my ears. Brenda, if I can take that one.
Sure.
Very critical. I think in any accessibility program, as we said, doing it once is just one part of it, but doing it continuous is the key. We have to do it again and again, and monitoring it is probably one of the most key aspects that we have to take care of. The first part to this puzzle, we have to figure out what's the frequency when we want to monitor and showcase. See, part of any monitoring exercise that we do, we always monitor a set of KPIs, publish them centrally so that everyone can view, and then we kind of move towards mitigating those issues or barriers that we find out. There are different frequencies that people, and it is again more of a business call that we have to take. My recommendation is always towards a monthly dashboard. We say track it month to month. Accessibility is not something you can track like daily basis, weekly basis. It's very tough because these barriers, these KPIs, it takes time for us to realize where are the barriers. I will say monthly dashboard is the perfect and the most reasonable choice given the situation I've seen. But again, it's a business call depending on what is your need, what are the KPIs you track, you can have a frequency schedule.
Thank you. Is there a recommended level of WCAG, like A or AA or AAA?
Interesting. Go on, Brenda.
I'll take the first stab and you can layer on to that. It's an interesting topic. I think it really depends on what your business objective is. Depending on where your websites are, you may have very specific rules and regulations around which level of WCAG you need to attend. But wherever possible, we strongly suggest starting small and working your way up, because accessibility is a big project. You can oftentimes make small moves and incremental moves towards full compliance, but do it in a way that at least continues to move you in the right direction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Brenda, you took my words. In the, always say it is stepwise. A lot of times I hear that, hey, can we go for AAA? Can we jump for that? We want to aim for the best. I say, hold on. Accessibility is a very intensive exercise. Takes time, takes effort. Achieving something like AAA, if it's not your business need, let's not gun for it. Let's go stepwise, as Brenda said. First achieve A, then AA, and then kind of rethink from a business perspective. Are we getting the ROI we wanted? Because we can't, otherwise these projects can really extend beyond whatever we thought of in terms of investment of time and effort.
Well, the related question, how do you deal with my legal department asking for conformity statement? We know it's never 100% compliant.
True. If I may take a first stab at it,
Sure.
Very, very common question, very relevant here. There is, and again, there is never, nobody can give you in writing that, hey, you are 100% compliant. And that's what even I highlighted in the last slide of the presentation. If we claim that we have done it, that's the biggest mistake we will ever do. So we should never say that we are 100% compliant. We should always state that we have done the efforts towards achieving the first step, and we are in continuous mode of doing it. That's the language every legal, if anybody who files against you in a legal court of law, they always read those words saying, are you in a continuous mode of removing those barriers or checking them? Plus always have a person point in touch or a means that somebody who is facing that difficulty can reach out to somebody. So having that contact up on your website is really very, very critical, so that, and you can never claim that you are 100% compliant, but if somebody faces any trouble, ideas, they know whom to reach out to. They should not be figuring out on contact us and filling up those long forms. Rather, they have an email ID or phone number where they can call or email and say, hey, can you help me with that piece on your website or app?
And I think it's also important to recognize that accessibility rules and regulations are going to continue to change, right? So there's never going to be a point in time where the legislation and the rules around that are finished. So you need to make sure that your conformity statement alludes to that and allows you the flexibility to keep moving in the right direction without ever really reaching that point of completion.
What accessibility tools do you guys recommend? I assume this is for evaluating accessibility.
Yeah. If I may add to it, again, if the best place, I always say, if you want to check what are the tools available, go to w3.org. That's the best place, and they have an entire list of, if I am not incorrect, they have like 150 plus tool list that they have. Again, you should not, I'm not expecting you to check all 150 plus list and evaluate them. Everybody has a favorite depending on the need you have. There are a bunch of free tools, there are a bunch of paid tools. My favorite, again, I don't want to endorse any tools up here, but my favorite ones include like Tenon, Wave, Lighthouse, some of them. But again, it's a whole list of tools which are there on W3 site. Go check based on your needs. You can select one.
We have time for one more question. And the question is, where do you find human tester? This particular person tried to find some employees with the proper disabilities, if you will, couldn't find them. Where can you find testers?
Very relevant question. I think that whoever asked it hit the nail on the head. It's not easy. It's not easy, and it's not easy to train them, because people with actual disability or natural disability, it's not easy to train them. We have specialized agencies. In fact, if you can contact me after the session, I can let you know how we do it. There are specialized agencies who just do it. They maintain a staff full of these people, and there is a mechanism where we have to let this kind of governed in as a process. It's not easy to execute it if you have to just do it for one website and so on. You need to have and take help from and specialized agencies, what I will recommend.
Thank you. And I'm afraid we reached our time limit. So I thank the audience for participating. And I thank Brenda and Akhil for all their wisdom. And good luck to everyone. Enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session.